For the first question, I said that the nature of the soul was more of a spiritual nature, that the soul was moral and emotional for all human beings. And in an article called "The Soul as a Person Who Experiences a Brain Psychological Function," it says how the mind and the soul are related to each other, that there's different terms, that the soul is also known as the mind, the spirit, the person, and self. But a lot of people feel like the mind is just dedicated to problem solving, thinking, judging, and remembering. But in another article I found called "Dualism, Revisited Body versus Mind versus Soul," it says that humans are composed of two different types of processes, mental process and bodily process. And that leads me to saying how the body and the soul, they do work together, but they have the same functions. That the soul or the mind originates the plan, and then the body is what acts about it or acts on it. And in the same article, it says that the two are originally related, that the soul acts on the body and the body acts on the soul. In my paper, I wrote how relating the body and the soul to a spiritual standpoint, and that they are not connected, that the soul and the body, we all make like mistakes, but the soul, you could be redeemed with your soul, but the body, like, you still have the scars left from mistakes. But like at the same time, psychological, the brain does at times conflict with the soul's determinate will. So like the example I put is how all humans, like, we all have sexual desires, but we're taught not to act upon it until marriage. But then physically you want it, but in your soul you're like, no, I shouldn't do it. So that's like a fight between the two. I think human nature at birth is more of a selfish behavior, because we come out of the womb crying to be held, to be fed, changed, and constantly wanting attention. But then as we grow up, it like just alters a little bit as maturity. I agree with Freud's Oedipus complex, and it suggested that during the phallic stage of a boy's development, he experienced sexual longing for his mom and hostility towards his father. I thought this was true because growing up, I saw my brother, like, I guess, like, not wanting my mom, like, in a sexual way, but like looking at her like, oh, there's, you know. And then eventually he grew out of that. And then I also agreed with Darwin, how he said that offspring inherit characteristics of the parents and grandparents passed on throughout the family line. But then as the family line continues, certain characteristics alter and they go away. And then the way that environment, I think environment plays a role in how a person's development, because depending on the person's childhood, that changes a person's perception of life and how they handle situations. And then, but at the end, it all depends on the individual, because someone can live in, like, have like a messed up childhood, but then come out to be like a really knowledgeable person in life and academics. And then I talked about Carl Rogers, how he suggested person-centered therapy, and how that related to the environmental, how environment helps a person. And then for the next question on human intelligence, there's an article called "On Human Intelligence," and it said intelligence is the ability to learn and understand, experience, or the ability to respond quickly to any situation. And that, I feel, is like street intelligence, how every person should have street smarts on, like, knowing how to act and adapt to certain situations. But then also like academic intelligence, so like IQ is also important to have, because that allows you, like, to go on to the next grade level and to, I guess, look good on paper and to, like, get jobs depending on, like, where you are, like, academically. And the article also talked about emotional intelligence, how it's, at times it can be more powerful than academic intelligence, because being able to have awareness of your feelings can take you a long way. Because like if you're mad at like something like a teacher or a boss does, and you have that control over your feelings, and you can, I guess, respond in a more healthier way. I talked about Bennett, Alfred Bennett, how he played a huge role in the development of human intelligence, how he invented the testing, and how the testing is found in schools today, like in high schools, tax testing, and how if you don't pass it, then you have to be held back. And how like, if you don't score a certain score, then you're found as abnormal. But I said that both emotional intelligence and academic intelligence is important, because you need both just to live a good, solid life and go far. And then for the last question, the psychology one, I said in the book it says how psychology is emerging as an independent discipline from philosophy and gradually adopted the methods of science. I talked about the basic functions of psychology by Hung are intuition, sensation, feeling, and thinking. Sensation is a sense of organs, and then thinking is the intellectual and logical conclusions, and feeling is subjective evaluation, and intuition is perception. The purpose of psychology is to better understand ourselves and others, and the theories provide framework to understanding the hows and whys of human behavior, and it also gives us a foundation of where to start in the history of psychology. The goals of psychology are to describe, explain, predict, and change. And psychology is meant for people to seek help, and for those that are educated to give advice in an effective way. And then for the psychological treatment, I said how it helps give people opportunity to talk to a professional in order to better understand oneself and how to think and how to respond. There are many different types of psychological treatment. There are cognitive behavior therapy, interpersonal psychotherapy, dialectical behavior therapy, and family interventions. And I have done psychotherapy before in like one of the sessions we've gone to, and I found it really beneficial. So I think if I did end up practicing counseling, I would do psychotherapy on some patients. But the goal of all therapy is to help the client become the best person they can be. And then to wrap this up, I chose Psalms 95:6. It says, "Come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker." And I took this as like the simple actions of worshiping, praying, and kneeling to Him. They show how devoted we are into His Word, and it's a way for us to set a solid foundation in Him, and that's what history of anything is, learning the foundation of whatever you're studying. And that's it. Yes?
The part about, you said the very last thing about before your scripture about the goal of therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get that idea?
I got that from the Techniques of Counseling book.
Say that again, I just want to hear it again.
The goal of any type of therapy is just to help the client live a better life, like live their life the best they can. Not to like change them, but just help them.
Any other questions that you didn't get filled out? Have to be in late. Get number one?
No, I didn't.
could ask her, and she'd probably.
Yeah, did you say, when I came in, did you say the soul and the mind are not connected?
So the soul and the mind are connected. That the nature of the soul is spiritual.
Wait, you said they work together. I thought you said they.
I said the mind and the body aren't connected,
Okay.
but the soul and the mind are.
And what's the difference between the mind and the soul?
Just like the soul is more of like, it's something that like floats up into heaven or hell, and then like the mind, I don't know, I think they're connected in a way, but I don't know, it's all in
Can you tell me, what is the mind?
What the paper or the articles I read about, they just said how the mind is just another way to describe the soul. It's just a different
Okay.
term.
But you're saying they're different?
No, I'm saying they're the same. But
Oh,
the
okay.
mind and the body. are
Okay,
different.
that's what I want, that's the only thing I was asking about. is
Yeah, no.
If there's
the
a
mind and the
difference to
body are
you, or if
different.
it's. Okay, any other questions? Okay, good job.